When billionaire Elon Musk's private jet breaks down at a small airport outside Houston, he's forced to call an Uber. What should be a routine ride turns extraordinary when he notices complex space equations on his elderly driver's notepad. These equations aren't just good, they're revolutionary. This chance encounter with Haruki Tanaka, a brilliant former NASA engineer now driving to support his sick wife, is about to change the course of human history. Hidden in Haruki's garage are designs that could transform space travel forever, if only someone would listen. And Elon Musk is definitely listening. It all started when Elon Musk glanced at his watch and frowned. It was almost midnight, and he was stranded at a tiny airport outside Houston. His private jet had developed engine trouble, and the repair team wouldn't arrive until morning. "Just perfect," he muttered, running a hand through his dark hair. Rain pattered against the windows of the small terminal building. The airport staff had already gone home, leaving Elon alone with his assistant, Jared. "I booked you a room at the Four Seasons downtown," Jared said, tapping on his tablet. "An Uber will be here in 7 minutes." Elon nodded. He hated delays, especially when he had meetings at SpaceX's Starbase facility early tomorrow. Every minute counted when you were trying to get humans to Mars. "You're sure there's no helicopter service? Private charter?" Elon asked, knowing the answer already. "Not at this hour, sir. Not in this weather," Jared replied. Elon's phone buzzed. "Car's here," he said, grabbing his small overnight bag. "Go home, Jared. I'll see you in the morning." Outside, the rain had slowed to a drizzle. A white Toyota Camry waited by the curb, its headlights cutting through the darkness. Not his usual transportation, but it would do. Elon opened the back door and slid inside. The car was immaculately clean and smelled faintly of pine. "Four Seasons Hotel downtown?" asked the driver, his voice soft and accented. "That's right," Elon replied, glancing up. The driver was an elderly Asian man, perhaps in his 70s, with a neat white beard and wire-rimmed glasses. His hands rested lightly on the steering wheel, the skin spotted with age, but steady. A small astronaut figure dangled from the rearview mirror. "Traffic should be light this time of night," the driver said, pulling away from the curb. "We'll have you there in 40 minutes. Elon nodded, taking out his phone. He had emails to answer, plans to review, the usual mountain of work that came with running multiple companies. But something on the dashboard caught his eye. A small notepad lay open, covered with handwritten numbers and symbols. Not the usual driver's notes of addresses or directions, but complex mathematical equations. The driver noticed Elon's gaze and quickly flipped the notepad closed, tucking it into his pocket. "Sorry about that," the driver said. "Just some old habits, hard to break." Elon's curiosity was piqued. Those weren't simple calculations he'd spotted. He'd seen differential equations and what looked like orbital mechanics formulas. "No problem," Elon said casually. "I'm something of a math guy myself." The driver smiled politely in the rearview mirror, but offered nothing more. They drove in silence for a few minutes, the wipers squeaking across the windshield. "I'm Elon, by the way," he said, finally deciding small talk was better than awkward silence. "Yes, Mr. Musk. I know who you are," the driver replied with a slight smile. "I'm Haruki Tanaka." "Those were some interesting equations on your notepad, Haruki," Elon said, watching for the man's reaction. Haruki's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, meeting Elon's for a brief moment. "Just passing the time between rides," he said. "An old man's doodling." "Orbital mechanics isn't exactly doodling," Elon pressed. "That looked like propulsion efficiency calculations, delta V optimization." Haruki's hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel. "You have a good eye, Mr. Musk," he said. "Comes with the territory when you build rockets," Elon replied. "Where did you learn that kind of math?" The car slowed for a red light. For a moment, Haruki was silent, as if debating how much to share. "NASA," he finally said, "many years ago." The light turned green, and they moved forward again. "You worked for NASA?" Elon leaned forward, his emails forgotten. "Johnson Space Center, 32 years. Haruki said, a touch of pride entering his voice. "I was an engineer on the space shuttle program, propulsion systems." Elon's mind raced. A NASA engineer driving an Uber at midnight. The man had to be at least semi-retired, but still, someone with that background could command consulting fees of hundreds of dollars an hour. "What brought you to Uber?" Elon asked, trying to keep his tone conversational. Haruki shrugged. Life, Mr. Musk. NASA downsized after the shuttle program ended. I was offered early retirement. My pension isn't what was promised, and my wife, May, has medical expenses. The car merged onto the highway toward downtown Houston. The road was nearly empty at this hour. The gleaming skyline appeared in the distance, a constellation of lights against the night sky. So, I drive, Haruki continued. It keeps me busy, puts extra food on the table. Haruki gestured toward the notepad in his pocket. And I still play with my equations. Old habits. Those didn't look like old equations to me, Elon said. That was cutting-edge work. Haruki's eyes crinkled slightly at the corners, the only indication he was smiling. An engineer never really retires, Mr. Musk. The mind keeps working, even when nobody's paying for the ideas anymore. Something in his tone, a mixture of resignation and wasted potential, struck Elon deeply. How many brilliant minds were out there, sidelined by circumstance? How many world-changing ideas never saw the light of day? Tell me about your work at NASA, Elon said. What systems did you specialize in? For the next 20 minutes, as they drove through the sleeping city, Haruki opened up. He spoke of fuel injection systems he'd designed for the main engines, of efficiency improvements that saved thousands of pounds of fuel per launch, of safety redundancies he'd implemented that never failed. The more Haruki talked, the more Elon realized this was no ordinary engineer. The concepts he described were innovative, even by today's standards, and he spoke about complex systems with the clarity of a true expert. Your notepad, Elon said as they approached the hotel. Those weren't old NASA calculations, were they? Haruki hesitated. No, he admitted. Just a personal project. Something I tinker with during slow nights. Something to do with interplanetary propulsion. Haruki's eyebrows rose slightly. Very good, Mr. Musk. Yes, a more efficient engine design. Theoretical, of course. The car pulled up to the gleaming entrance of the Four Seasons. A man rushed forward with an umbrella, though the rain had stopped. What's your phone number? Elon asked suddenly. My phone number? Haruki seemed puzzled. I'd like to continue our conversation, maybe see those equations in more detail. Haruki slowly recited his number, which Elon entered into his phone. Expect my call tomorrow, Elon said, handing Haruki a $100 bill. And keep that notepad handy. As Elon stepped out of the car, Haruki called after him. Mr. Musk, why would you care about an old man's scribbles? Elon leaned down, looking back into the car. Because the old man might just have solved a problem I've been working on for years. And because good ideas deserve to fly, no matter who they come from. He closed the door and walked into the hotel, already texting his assistant that the SpaceX meetings would need to be rescheduled. He had just found something much more interesting. A hidden genius driving an Uber with equations that might change everything. Behind him, Haruki Tanaka sat in his white Toyota, staring at the $100 bill in his hand, wondering if the strange encounter was just a dream or the beginning of something extraordinary. Haruki drove home in a daze, the $100 bill tucked safely in his wallet. Had that really happened? Had Elon Musk, the Elon Musk, just asked for his phone number? He pulled into the driveway of his small ranch-style home in a modest Houston suburb. The porch light was still on, which meant May was waiting up for him. Despite her illness, she never went to bed until he was home safe. Haruki's joints ached as he climbed out of the car. Driving for 12 hours straight took its toll on a man his age. He was tired, but his mind buzzed with the strange encounter. Inside, he found May sitting in her favorite armchair, a blanket draped over her legs. At 68, she was still beautiful to him, even with her thinning hair and the paleness that came with her treatments. You're late tonight? She said, her eyes crinkling with a smile. Busy evening? Haruki hung his jacket on the hook by the door. You won't believe who was in my car tonight. He told her about picking up Elon Musk, about the man noticing his equations, about the unexpected interest in his work. As he spoke, May's eyes grew wider. Did you show him your designs? She asked. Haruki shook his head. No, just the basic equations. He doesn't know about the full system yet, but he wants to talk more tomorrow. That's what he said. Haruki sank into the chair opposite her. But May, you know how these rich men are. Full of excitement one minute, gone the next. He'll forget by morning. May reached across and took his hand. Her fingers were cool and thin. Maybe not this time. Your work is brilliant, Haruki. I've always told you that. You're my wife, he teased, squeezing her hand gently. I say it because it's true, she replied. Her voice grew serious. Promise me you'll take his call if it comes. Haruki looked into her eyes and nodded slowly. I promise. From the hallway came the sound of soft footsteps. Their granddaughter, Kira, appeared, yawning. Her long black hair was tied in a messy bun. At 22, she looked remarkably like May had at that age. I thought I heard voices, she said, leaning against the doorframe. Everything okay? Your grandfather met Elon Musk tonight, May said, her eyes twinkling. Kira straightened up, suddenly wide awake. What? The SpaceX guy? For real? Haruki nodded. He was my passenger from the small airport to downtown, and he saw Grandpa's rocket designs. Not the designs, Haruki corrected, just some of the equations. Kira crossed the room and perched on the arm of her grandmother's chair. Did you tell him about your wormhole theory? Kira, Haruki frowned. It's not a wormhole theory. It's a theoretical approach to space-time manipulation for propulsion purposes. Which is basically a wormhole, Kira said, grinning. As a third-year engineering student at Rice University, she understood her grandfather's work better than anyone, except May. No, I didn't tell him about that, Haruki said firmly. And I won't. That part is complicated. That part is genius, Kira insisted. It's what makes your whole system revolutionary. Haruki sighed. It's theoretical, unproven. No one would take it seriously. Elon Musk might, May said softly. The three of them sat in silence for a moment, considering the possibility. He gave me $100 tip, Haruki finally said, taking out his wallet and showing them the bill. Kira whistled. Nice. That'll help with this month's medications. May's face clouded slightly at the mention of her prescriptions. The cancer treatments were expensive, even with their insurance. It was the main reason Haruki drove for Uber despite his age. Don't worry about that now, she said, patting Kira's hand. Tell me more about Mr. Musk. Was he nice? He was intense, Haruki said, remembering the man's piercing gaze. Very, very focused. He recognized my orbital mechanics equations right away. Of course he did, Kira said. He builds rockets for a living. Yes, but he understood them. Really understood them. Haruki still seemed surprised. Most people saw his notes and thought he was working on accounting or statistics. Because most people aren't rocket scientists, Kira pointed out. Neither am I, Haruki said, his voice tinged with regret. Not anymore. Just an old man driving a car. Stop that, May said sharply. You are Haruki Tanaka. Your fuel injection system flew on 27 shuttle missions. Your safety protocols saved lives. Your mind is as brilliant now as it was then. Haruki smiled at his wife's fierce defense. For 39 years, she had been his strongest supporter, believing in him even when he didn't believe in himself. I should get some sleep, he said, standing up slowly. If Mr. Musk does call tomorrow, I should be rested. And you'll show him everything, May pressed. All your work. Haruki hesitated. We'll see. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. After helping May to bed, Haruki went to his garage. This was his sanctuary, his workshop. One wall was covered with whiteboards filled with equations. A desk held stacks of notebooks containing 15 years of calculations and designs. In the corner sat a crude model of his theoretical engine, built from spare parts. He turned on the desk lamp and opened his notepad to the page Elon had seen. The equations were just a small part of a much larger system, a revolutionary approach to space travel that he'd been developing since leaving NASA. NASA had dismissed his ideas as too theoretical, too risky. But what if Elon Musk saw something different? The man was known for taking risks, for pushing boundaries. Haruki touched the model engine gently. Could his work actually mean something again? Could his designs fly after all these years? Don't be foolish, old man, he muttered to himself. He won't call. But as he turned off the light and closed the garage door, a small flame of hope flickered in his heart. Hope that had been dormant for a very long time. In his bedroom, he found May already asleep, her breathing shallow but steady. He slipped into bed beside her, careful not to wake her. Something is about to change, he whispered, though she couldn't hear him. I can feel it. Across town in his luxurious hotel suite, Elon Musk was wide awake. His laptop screen glowed in the darkness as he searched for information on Haruki Tanaka. Article after article from NASA's archives appeared. Papers on propulsion systems, fuel efficiency, safety protocols, awards for innovation, patents filed under Haruki's name. One photo showed a younger Haruki standing proudly beside the Space Shuttle Discovery, his hand resting on the massive main engine he had helped design. Elon leaned back, his mind racing with possibilities. The equations he'd glimpsed in Haruki's car suggested a breakthrough approach to interplanetary travel, exactly what SpaceX needed for their Mars missions. He picked up his phone and sent a text to his assistant. "Cancel all my meetings tomorrow. Found something more important. Need to meet with Haruki Tanaka, former NASA engineer. Track him down. Bring him to the Texas facility ASAP." Then he added, "This could change everything." Morning sun streamed through the hotel curtains as Elon sat cross-legged on his bed, surrounded by printouts. He had barely slept, too excited by what he had discovered about Haruki. The man wasn't just any NASA engineer, he was a legend within the space agency. Haruki had designed fuel systems that increased efficiency by 177% on the space shuttle, saving millions in launch costs. His safety protocols had been adopted across the entire program. 3 patents bore his name, and he had received NASA's Exceptional Engineering Achievement Medal in 1992. Yet, after 2011, when the shuttle program ended, Haruki seemed to vanish from the aerospace world. No new papers, no consulting work, nothing. Elon's phone buzzed. It was Jared, his assistant. "I found him, sir," Jared said. "Haruki Tanaka lives in Pearland, south of Houston. He's been driving for Uber for about 4 years. Before that, he worked as a high school math teacher for a while." "A math teacher?" Elon frowned. "That's a waste of his talents. According to my sources, he tried to stay at NASA after the shuttle program, but was pushed into early retirement during budget cuts. He applied to several aerospace companies afterward, but was rejected, apparently for being overqualified or too close to retirement age." Elon's jaw tightened. Age discrimination was all too common in tech and engineering, something he found both foolish and short-sighted. "What time does he usually start driving?" Elon asked. "His Uber profile shows he typically begins around 10 a.m. on weekdays." Elon checked his watch, 7:30 a.m. "Send a car to his house at 9. Tell him I want to meet at SpaceX's Texas development facility. And Jared, make it clear this isn't optional. Tell him I need his expertise on an urgent propulsion problem." "Yes, sir," Jared replied. Elon hung up and stared out the window at the Houston skyline. He thought about the equations he'd glimpsed in Haruki's car. They weren't just innovative, they were revolutionary. If Haruki's calculations were correct, they could solve the fuel efficiency problems that had been plaguing SpaceX's Mars rocket designs. But Elon suspected there was more to it than that. Something in Haruki's manner, a careful guardedness when discussing his hobby project, suggested he was holding back something big. By 9:15 a.m., Elon was pacing the conference room at SpaceX's development facility outside Houston. The room's large windows overlooked the sprawling test site, where prototype rockets stood like silver sentinels against the Texas sky. His phone rang. It was Jared again. "Sir, we have a problem. Mr. Tanaka is refusing to come in. He says he has Uber passengers scheduled and can't cancel on them." Elon frowned. "Put him on the phone." There was a pause, then a familiar voice. "Mr. Musk, this is Haruki Tanaka." "Mr. Tanaka, I need you at my facility today. I've been looking at your background. Your work at NASA was brilliant. I believe your current equations could help solve a critical problem we're facing." "I'm flattered, truly," Haruki replied, his voice hesitant. "But I have commitments. People depend on me for rides, and my wife has a doctor's appointment this afternoon." Elon thought quickly. "What if I send a car for your wife, too? She can come with you. We have comfortable waiting areas, and I'll personally pay you triple what you would make driving Uber today." The line went silent. Elon could almost hear Haruki wrestling with the decision. "Maybe tomorrow would be better," Haruki finally said. "Mr. Tanaka," Elon said firmly, "I don't say this lightly, but what I glimpsed in your notepad could significantly advance our Mars program. Every day matters in this work. This isn't just about money. It's about making history." Another pause. "My granddaughter would need to come too. She stays with my wife when I'm working." "Of course," Elon agreed immediately. "The car will pick up all 3 of you in 30 minutes. After hanging up, Elon instructed his team to prepare the engineering lab. He wanted Haruki to feel at home, surrounded by the tools and technology that had once been part of his daily life. At 10:45 a.m., Elon watched through the window as a black Tesla pulled up to the facility entrance. Haruki stepped out first, looking uncomfortable in a button-up shirt and slacks that seemed newly pressed. He helped an elderly woman exit the car, May, presumably, moving with the gentle care of decades-long love. Then a young woman emerged from the back seat, tall and confident. She surveyed the SpaceX facility with undisguised curiosity. This must be the granddaughter. She supported May on one side, while Haruki held the other. The three of them formed a unit as they approached the building. Elon met them in the lobby. "Mr. Tanaka, thank you for coming." He extended his hand, which Haruki shook firmly. "And you must be Mrs. Tanaka." "And Kira," the young woman supplied. "Kira Tanaka. I'm studying aerospace engineering at Rice University." Her direct gaze held a challenge, as if daring Elon to dismiss her because of her age or gender. Elon nodded, instantly liking her confidence. "Excellent. We always need good engineers." He turned to May. "Mrs. Tanaka, we've prepared a comfortable room where you can rest while we talk shop. There's tea, snacks, and a good view of our test facility." "Thank you," May said softly, her voice carrying the slight tremor of illness. "But I've been listening to Haruki's shop talk for 40 years. I think I'll join you, if that's all right." "Of course," Elon said, surprised. "But please, let me show you to our lab." As they walked through the facility, Elon noticed how Haruki's eyes darted to each piece of equipment, each computer screen, drinking in the technology with the keen interest of someone who had been away from his natural habitat for too long. Engineers and technicians stopped to stare as the group passed. Some recognized Haruki. A few of the older staff had worked with NASA in the past and whispered to their colleagues. In the main engineering lab, Elon had arranged for coffee and a light breakfast. He guided May to a comfortable chair while Haruki stood awkwardly looking around at the advanced equipment. So Elon said, once they were settled, "Let's talk about those equations I saw in your car." Haruki hesitated, glancing at his wife. May gave him a small nod of encouragement. "They're part of a system I've been developing," Haruki said slowly, "a new approach to interplanetary propulsion." "I'd like to see all of it," Elon said, "not just the fragments I glimpsed." Haruki reached into his pocket and pulled out the notepad. He placed it on the table between them, but kept his hand on top of it. "What would you do with my ideas, Mr. Musk?" he asked, his voice quiet but direct. "If they proved valuable?" Elon held his gaze. "Implement them, build them, test them, and make sure you get full credit and compensation for your work." Kira stepped forward. "My grandfather's ideas aren't just valuable, Mr. Musk. They're revolutionary, but no one would listen because he's just a retired old man." Haruki shot her a warning look, but Elon was intrigued. "Revolutionary? How?" he asked. Before Haruki could answer, Elon's chief propulsion engineer, Dr. Alvarez, entered the lab. She had been briefed on the situation and came prepared with questions. "Mr. Tanaka," she said, extending her hand, "it's an honor. Your paper on fuel injection turbopumps was required reading when I was at MIT." For the first time since arriving, Haruki smiled, a genuine smile that erased years from his face. Here, at least, was someone who spoke his language, who understood his work. "Please," he said finally, removing his hand from the notepad, "call me Haruki." He opened the notepad and began to explain his ideas, his voice growing stronger with each page he turned. Watching him come alive, Elon knew he had been right. He had found something, someone extraordinary, and whatever Haruki Tanaka was about to show them might indeed change everything. The meeting at SpaceX lasted 3 hours longer than planned. By the time they finished, the Texas sun was already low in the sky, casting long shadows across the test facility. Haruki had shared only parts of his propulsion system, the basics of his fuel efficiency designs and some of his thruster configurations. Even these partial revelations had left Dr. Alvarez and the other SpaceX engineers buzzing with excitement. They recognized the potential immediately. "Mr. Tanaka," Elon said as they wrapped up, "I want you to join SpaceX as a special consultant. We need your expertise on our Mars program." Haruki looked startled. "Consultant at my age?" "Age is irrelevant," Elon replied. "Your mind is what matters." Elon named a figure that made Kira gasp and May squeeze her husband's hand. "That's very generous," Haruki said slowly, "but I can't accept." Elon frowned. "The salary is negotiable." "If it's not about money," Haruki interrupted, "it's about May." He glanced at his wife, whose face had grown pale with fatigue. She needs my care. Her treatments leave her weak. I can't commit to regular hours at a facility this far from our home. May shook her head. Haruki, don't use me as an excuse. It's not an excuse, he said firmly. Your health comes first. Elon watched them, seeing the deep bond between them. Then his eyes moved to Kira, who had been taking detailed notes throughout the meeting, occasionally jumping in with insightful questions that impressed even his senior engineers. What if we come to you? Elon suggested. What do you mean? Haruki asked. We set up a small lab in your home. You work on your own schedule. We provide equipment, support staff, anything you need. Kira leaned forward eagerly. That could work. Grandpa, you could use the garage. It's already half a lab anyway. Haruki hesitated, clearly tempted. I don't know. Think about it, Elon said. Sleep on it. I'll call you tomorrow. As they prepared to leave, Elon arranged for his driver to take the Tanaka family home. He watched them go, noticing how carefully Haruki helped May into the car, how Kira hovered protectively nearby. That evening, back at the Four Seasons, Elon couldn't focus on his other work. His mind kept returning to Haruki's equations, to the potential breakthroughs they represented. He called Dr. Alvarez. What's your assessment? He asked without preamble. His fuel efficiency concepts alone could improve our Mars rocket performance by at least 15%, she replied. But there's something he's not showing us, something bigger. The equations he shared don't fully connect. There are missing pieces. I thought so too, Elon said. We need to get him on board. Whatever it takes. Agreed, but tread carefully. He's old school NASA, cautious, methodical. Push too hard and he'll shut down completely. After hanging up, Elon paced his hotel suite, mind racing. He needed Haruki's complete design, not just fragments, but how to gain the old engineer's trust. The next morning, Elon arrived unannounced at the Tanaka home. It was a modest single-story house with a well-kept lawn and flower bed blooming with marigolds and petunias. May's touch, he guessed. Kira answered the door, looking surprised. Mr. Musk, we weren't expecting you. I know, I apologize for dropping in. Is your grandfather available? He's in the garage, she said, stepping back to let him in. His thinking place, as Grandma calls it. Elon followed her through the neat but simply furnished home. Photos lined the walls. Haruki and May when they were young, their children, and later Kira in various stages of growing up. One photo showed Haruki in his NASA uniform, standing proudly beside a space shuttle. In the kitchen, May sat at the table sorting medications into a pill organizer. She looked up, surprised. Mr. Musk, I didn't know you were coming. She started to stand, but Elon gestured for her to remain seated. Please, don't get up. I hope I'm not intruding. Not at all, she said, though her eyes held a question. Kira, would you get Haruki from the garage? Actually, Elon said, I'd like to see his workshop, if that's okay. Kira and May exchanged glances. Of course, May said. Kira, show Mr. Musk to the garage. As they walked, Kira spoke quietly. My grandfather has been up all night working on his equations. Your visit yesterday, it awakened something in him. That's good, isn't it? Elon asked. Yes, she hesitated. Please, don't get his hopes up if you're not serious. He's been disappointed too many times before. Elon could respond as they reached the garage door. Kira knocked. Grandpa, you have a visitor. She opened the door to reveal a space transformed by obsession. What had once been a garage was now a makeshift laboratory. Whiteboards covered the walls, filled with equations and diagrams. In the center stood a workbench with a partially assembled metal prototype about the size of a microwave. Haruki looked up from his calculations, surprised. Mr. Musk, what are you doing here? I wanted to see where the magic happens, Elon said, taking in the room with keen interest. His eyes lingered on the prototype. Is that it? Your propulsion system? Haruki moved to stand between Elon and the key device. Just a small-scale model. Not functional, of course. Of course, Elon echoed, though he suspected otherwise. Mr. Tanaka, I came to make you an offer in person. He laid out his proposal. SpaceX would set up a fully equipped lab in Haruki's garage. They would provide any materials, computers, and testing equipment needed. Haruki would work on his own schedule with no pressure to come to the SpaceX facility unless he wanted to. And most importantly, Elon continued, you'll have complete creative control. This is your project. We're just providing resources. Haruki's expression remained guarded. And what does SpaceX get in return? first rights to implement your designs in our Mars program, with full credit and royalties to you. Elon named a percentage that made Haruki's eyebrows rise. You're that convinced my work has value? I am. Haruki turned to look at his cluttered workspace, then back at Elon. I need to think about it. Of course, Elon said, though inwardly he was impatient. Take your time. As they walked back to the kitchen, they found May in conversation with Kira, both looking worried. Is everything okay? Haruki asked. May nodded, but Kira spoke up. Grandma's doctor called. They want to adjust her treatment plan. It's going to cost more. A shadow crossed Haruki's face. How much more? Kira named a figure that made him wince. We'll manage, he said firmly, though Elon could see the strain in his eyes. Mr. Tanaka, Elon said quietly, my offer includes full health benefits for you and your wife. Any treatments, any specialists, it's all covered. The room went silent. Haruki looked at May, whose eyes had filled with tears. Take it, Grandpa, Kira urged. This is your chance to finish what you started, to make a difference again. Kira's right, May said softly. I've watched you driving that car, coming home exhausted, all while your brilliant ideas gather dust in this garage. Please, Haruki, do this for yourself. Haruki's shoulders straightened. I'll do it on one condition, he said, turning to Elon. Kira works with me as my assistant. She understands my methods, and she's a talented engineer in her own right. Elon glanced at Kira, whose face lit up with hope and excitement. Done, he said, extending his hand. Welcome to SpaceX, both of you. As they shook hands, Elon felt a surge of triumph. He had secured not just Haruki's extraordinary mind, but also that of his granddaughter, a bonus he hadn't anticipated. When can we start? Kira asked eagerly. I'll have a team here tomorrow to set up the lab. Elon promised, by next week you'll have everything you need to turn those equations into reality. As Elon left the Tanaka home, he couldn't help but feel he had just changed the course of not just one family's life, but potentially that of human space exploration. Whatever Haruki was hiding in those incomplete equations, Elon was now one step closer to discovering it. Behind him, the Tanaka family stood in their doorway. Haruki, with his arm around May, Kira bouncing with barely contained excitement. A new chapter was beginning for all of them, filled with both promise and uncertainty. True to his word, Elon sent a team the very next day. The Tanaka garage transformed rapidly into a high-tech laboratory. Workbenches with precision tools lined the walls. 3 powerful computer stations with advanced modeling software replaced Haruki's old desktop. In the center stood a small testing platform where prototypes could be safely evaluated. Kira watched the installation with wide eyes. This equipment must cost millions, she whispered to her grandfather. Haruki nodded, looking both thrilled and intimidated. After the technicians left, he stood in the middle of his new lab, running his fingers over the gleaming surfaces, hardly believing this was happening. A week later, Dr. Alvarez arrived with 2 young SpaceX engineers, Raj Patel and Marcus Chen. They would work directly with Haruki and Kira, helping to translate Haruki's theoretical designs into testable models. Mr. Musk wants regular updates, Dr. Alvarez explained, but otherwise this is your show, Mr. Tanaka. These engineers are here to assist, not direct. Haruki appreciated the respect. For the first time in years, he was being treated as a valuable mind, not an obsolete relic. The work began in earnest. Mornings and afternoons were devoted to the propulsion system. Evenings were for May, whose spirits improved seeing her husband engaged in meaningful work again. Kira balanced her university classes with lab time, often staying late into the night, running simulations on the new computers. After 2 weeks, Elon returned for his first progress report. The team gathered around the main workbench where Haruki had laid out his detailed plans. We've been focusing on the fuel efficiency system, Haruki explained, pointing to a series of diagrams. By restructuring the combustion chamber and modifying the nozzle geometry, we can achieve a 23% increase in efficiency. Dr. Alvarez nodded. We've run the numbers through our models. His calculations check out. Elon examined the designs with intense focus. This alone makes our investment worthwhile, he said. How soon can we integrate these modifications into our existing engines? 3 months for initial testing, Raj estimated. Maybe 6 months for full implementation. Too long, Elon said. I want prototypes in 4 weeks, full implementation in 3 months. The SpaceX engineers exchanged nervous glances, but Haruki smiled slightly. He recognized Elon's drive to push boundaries, to make the impossible happen on impossible timelines. It reminded him of the early days at NASA during the space race. "We can do it," Haruki said confidently, "if you provide additional fabrication resources." "Done," Elon replied without hesitation. "What else?" Haruki hesitated, glancing at Kira. She gave him an encouraging nod. "There's something more," he said slowly, moving to a locked cabinet in the corner of the lab. "Something I haven't shared yet." The room went quiet as Haruki unlocked the cabinet and removed a thick notebook bound in faded blue leather. It looked old, well-used, its pages dog-eared and covered with handwritten notes. "I started this project 15 years ago, just before I left NASA," he explained, placing the notebook carefully on the table. "They weren't interested then, said it was too theoretical, too risky." He opened the notebook to reveal complex equations and diagrams unlike anything the SpaceX team had seen before. "What are we looking at?" Elon asked, leaning closer. "A different approach to space propulsion entirely," Haruki said. "Not just more efficient rockets, something beyond chemical propulsion." Dr. Alvarez studied the equations, her expression changing from confusion to shock. "This looks like... No, that can't be right." She looked up at Haruki. "Are you suggesting a method for manipulating space-time fabric for propulsion?" Haruki nodded. "In simple terms, yes. That's science fiction," Marcus said dismissively. "Warp drives aren't possible with our current understanding of physics." "I didn't say warp drive," Haruki corrected gently. "This isn't about exceeding the speed of light. It's about creating localized distortions in space-time to reduce the effective distance traveled, like folding a piece of paper to bring 2 points closer together." Kira added, using her hands to demonstrate. Elon's eyes gleamed with interest. "You're describing something like an Alabar drive, but without the negative mass requirements, a similar concept with a different approach." Haruki confirmed Dr. Ayalu Beer's theoretical drive requires exotic matter we can't create. "My system works with existing technology and materials." Raj shook his head. "With all due respect, sir, that's impossible. 15 years ago, landing and reusing orbital-class rockets was considered impossible," Elon pointed out. "I've built my career on impossible things." He turned back to Haruki. "Show me how it works." For the next hour, Haruki explained his theory, writing equations on the digital whiteboard, illustrating concepts with hand gestures and simple diagrams. The room remained silent, except for his voice and the occasional question from Elon or Dr. Alvarez. As Haruki's explanation reached its conclusion, Marcus and Raj looked stunned. Dr. Alvarez sat with her hands pressed against her temples, as if trying to contain the implications of what she'd just heard. "If this works," she said slowly, "we wouldn't just reach Mars faster. We could potentially reach the outer planets within weeks instead of years." "Exactly," Haruki said. Elon had been unusually quiet throughout the explanation. Now he spoke. "Have you tested any of this, even on a microscopic scale?" Haruki and Kira exchanged glances. "We've conducted some very small experiments," Kira admitted, "in the old garage before all this." She gestured to the new equipment. "We used parts from old microwaves and some creatively acquired materials." "What were the results?" Elon asked. "Inconclusive, but promising," Haruki said. "We measured what appeared to be a localized distortion in spacetime, but our equipment wasn't sophisticated enough for proper analysis." Elon stood up straight. "Decision made. We're going all in on this. Dr. Alvarez, I want you to personally oversee this project. Whatever resources you need, you'll have." Dr. Alvarez nodded, though she still looked overwhelmed by the implications of Haruki's theory. "Marcus, Raj," Elon continued, "either get on board with this or I'll find engineers who will. I don't need skeptics, I need builders." The young engineers straightened up, recognizing both the opportunity and the challenge. "We're in," Raj said, speaking for both of them. "Good." Elon turned back to Haruki. "How long to build a testable prototype?" Haruki considered. "With these resources, 3 months for a proof-of-concept device, 6 months for something that could demonstrate actual space-time manipulation." "You have 2 months for the proof of concept," Elon said. 4 for the demonstrator. He checked his watch. "I expect weekly progress reports. If you hit any roadblocks, call me directly, day or night." As Elon prepared to leave, he paused at the door. "Mr. Tanaka, why did you keep this secret for so long? Why drive Uber when you had this in your garage?" Haruki's face showed a complex mix of emotions: pride, regret, determination. After NASA rejected the concept, I tried other aerospace companies. No one would listen. Eventually, I stopped trying. Sometimes the world isn't ready for new ideas. Well, I'm ready, Elon said simply. Let's make history together. After Elon and Dr. Alvarez departed, Marcus and Raj huddled over Haruki's notebook, arguing excitedly about implementation approaches. The skepticism had transformed into enthusiasm. Kira found her grandfather standing quietly in the corner, watching the young engineers with a mysterious smile. "What are you thinking, Grandpa?" she asked. "I'm thinking I didn't show them everything," he whispered. "Not yet. The stabilization matrix." He nodded. "They're not ready for that part. One step at a time." From the doorway, May watched her husband's transformation. The stooped shoulders of the Uber driver had straightened. The hesitant voice had regained its authority. The resigned acceptance in his eyes had been replaced by purposeful determination. Whatever happened with the project, she thought, Elon Musk had already worked a miracle. He had given Haruki back to himself. 2 weeks into the project, Elon's private jet touched down in Houston again. The meeting at SpaceX had gone well, but Haruki's ideas still occupied his thoughts day and night. He had questions that couldn't wait for the weekly reports. Raj met him at the Tanaka house, looking tired but excited. "We've been working around the clock, sir. Mr. Tanaka is, well, he's incredible. At his age, he outworks all of us." Inside the converted garage, Elon found a scene of focused intensity. Marcus sat at one computer station running simulations. Kira worked at another, making adjustments to a complex 3D model. In the center of the room, Haruki stood before a small testing platform where a metal device about the size of a toaster hummed quietly. "Mr. Musk," Haruki said, looking up, "we weren't expecting you." "I had some questions about your space-time manipulation theory," Elon replied. "Thought it would be easier to discuss in person." Haruki nodded. "Of course, though perhaps we should talk privately." Elon raised an eyebrow but followed Haruki out of the lab and into the backyard. It was a pleasant evening. The Texas heat was fading as the sun dipped toward the horizon. May's flower garden filled the air with sweet scents. "I assume you have concerns?" Haruki said once they were alone. "Not concerns, curiosities." Elon sat on a garden bench. "Your theory is revolutionary, but it feels incomplete, like you're holding something back." Haruki smiled faintly. "You have good instincts, Mr. Musk." "Call me Elon," he replied. Haruki then sat beside him, his face serious. "What I showed your team is only part of the picture. The space-time manipulation system is real and it will work as described, but it's not my ultimate goal." "What is your ultimate goal?" Elon asked. Haruki was silent for a long moment, as if weighing a decision. Finally, he spoke. "Have you heard of the Krasnikov tube theory?" Elon's eyes widened slightly. "A theoretical method for creating a traversable pathway through space-time? A sort of tube where the laws of physics are altered to allow faster travel? But it's purely theoretical." "So were black holes once," Haruki countered. "Everything is theoretical until someone builds it. Are you saying you found a way to create a Krasnikov tube?" "Not exactly," Haruki leaned forward, lowering his voice, though no one else was nearby. "I've developed a theory for creating something similar but more stable, a controlled wormhole, essentially." Elon stared at him. "That would change everything. Interstellar travel would become possible within a human lifetime." "Exactly." Haruki's eyes shone with intensity. "But it goes beyond that. If we can create stable pathways through space-time, we could potentially reach any point in our galaxy." "Why haven't you shared this with the team?" Elon asked. "Because I haven't solved all the problems yet. The theory is sound, but the practical application is enormously complex. And frankly, I wasn't sure I could trust SpaceX with this knowledge." "You can trust us," Elon said firmly. "Perhaps, but this technology, in the wrong hands, could be dangerous. Very dangerous." Haruki's expression was grave. "It's not just about travel. Manipulating space-time at this level has other implications." "Like what?" Elon asked. "Like potentially creating closed time-like curves." Elon's breath caught. "Time travel?" "Theoretical time travel," Haruki corrected, "within certain constraints. But even the possibility raises enormous ethical questions." They sat in silence as the implications sank in. A mockingbird sang from a nearby tree, oblivious to the world-changing conversation happening below. "When did you develop this theory?" Elon finally asked. I began at NASA, but they shut it down, said it was too speculative, too far from practical application. Haruki's voice held old bitterness. I continued in secret, working nights and weekends. Then May got sick the first time, about 10 years ago, with breast cancer. I'm sorry. She recovered, but the medical bills... Haruki shook his head. I took a teaching job, put the research aside. Then when she got sick again, 5 years ago, I drove for Uber because I could make my own hours, be there for her treatments and the research. I never fully abandoned it. I would work on it late at night, sometimes just doing calculations in my head while waiting for ride requests, but progress was slow. He looked toward the house where light spilled from the kitchen window. May's silhouette moved inside, preparing dinner. Until now, Elon said. Until now, Haruki agreed. Your resources have accelerated everything. The space-time propulsion system we're building will work. It will revolutionize space travel within our solar system, but the wormhole theory is still theoretical. Yes, and I haven't shared it with anyone except Kira. Not even Dr. Alvarez knows. Elon considered this information carefully. I want to help you complete it, all of it. Why? Haruki asked, studying Elon's face. Most business people would focus on the technology that can be commercialized now, not chase theoretical physics. I'm not most business people, Elon replied with a slight smile. And besides, I didn't start SpaceX to make money. I started it to make humans a multiplanetary species. And now I'm thinking bigger. A multistellar species, Elon stood up, energy radiating from him. We'll build both systems, the space-time propulsion device for near-term applications, and we'll fund your wormhole research as a separate classified project. Who would work on it? You, Kira, and a small team of your choosing, the most brilliant minds we can find, people you trust completely. Haruki looked skeptical. The technical challenges are enormous. It would require developing entirely new materials, new power systems. I'm good at enormous challenges, Elon said simply. How long would it take? Years, maybe decades. What if I gave you unlimited resources, the best minds, the best equipment, no budget constraints? Haruki thought about it. Even then, 5 years to prove the concept, 10 years for a working prototype. I can live with that timeline, Elon extended his hand. Do we have a deal? You give SpaceX your complete trust, and I give you everything you need to make this happen. Haruki hesitated only briefly before shaking Elon's hand. We have a deal. As they walked back toward the house, Haruki asked, Why trust me with this now? You could have kept it secret. Haruki smiled sadly. May's cancer is back, stage 4 this time. The doctors give her 2 years, maybe 3, with aggressive treatment. His voice cracked slightly. I want to complete this work while she can still see it. I want her to know that our sacrifices meant something. Elon placed a hand on the older man's shoulder. We'll make it happen. I promise. They entered the kitchen, where May was setting the table for dinner. She looked up with a smile that transformed her thin face. Will you join us, Mr. Musk? I'd be honored, Elon replied. During dinner, they carefully avoided any mention of wormholes or space-time manipulation. Instead, they talked about ordinary things. Kira's university studies, May's garden, Haruki's early days at NASA. For a little while, they were just people sharing a meal, not revolutionaries planning to change humanity's future. After dinner, as Elon prepared to leave, Haruki walked him to his car. There's something else you should know, Haruki said quietly. Something I haven't told anyone. Not even Kira or May. What is it? I've already conducted a small wormhole experiment, years ago using equipment I borrowed from the university where I was teaching. Elon stared at him. What happened? It worked. For 3.7 microseconds, I created a stable microscopic wormhole between 2 points in space. Then my equipment failed from the power surge. Haruki's eyes shone in the darkness. It's not just theory, Elon. It's possible. On the drive back to his hotel, Elon sat in stunned silence. If what Haruki said was true, if stable wormholes were actually possible, then everything would change. Not just space travel, but human civilization itself, for the first time since its founding, felt a shift. SpaceX had always been a grand venture, but Elon Musk felt like he might have been thinking too small. Mars was just the beginning. With Haruki's technology, the stars themselves were within reach. The next morning, Elon called an urgent meeting at the SpaceX facility. Dr. Alvarez arrived first, followed by several senior executives. They gathered in the conference room, but I'm curious about the sudden summons. I've made a decision, Elon announced once everyone was seated. We're creating a new division within SpaceX, top secret, highest clearance level. It will be called Project Tanaka. Dr. Alvarez raised an eyebrow. Based on Haruki's propulsion system? Yes, but with an expanded scope, Elon replied. He paced energetically as he spoke. We'll continue developing the space-time manipulation drive for near-term applications, but we're also going to pursue more ambitious goals. One executive asked, such as? You'll be briefed if you're assigned to the project, Elon answered. For now, know that this is the most important work we're doing. More important than Mars, more important than Starship. The executives exchanged surprised glances. Nothing was more important than Mars in Elon's universe, until now, apparently. I want a dedicated facility near Haruki's home, Elon continued. Something that looks ordinary from the outside but has state-of-the-art labs inside. And I want our best people on this. Dr. Alvarez nodded. I'll start looking for a suitable location today. Good. And one more thing, Elon added. I'm offering Haruki Tanaka a formal position as Chief Theoretical Officer with full benefits, stock options, and a salary appropriate for someone of his expertise. That's excellent, Dr. Alvarez said. His knowledge is irreplaceable. I'm not sure he'll accept, Elon admitted. He's determined to work from home to care for his wife, but I want the offer on the table. After the meeting, Elon drove back to the Tanaka house. This time, Kira answered the door with a worried expression. Grandma's having a bad day, she explained quietly. The medications make her very tired. I understand, Elon said. Is your grandfather available? He's with her now, but he should be out soon. You can wait in the lab if you'd like. In the garage laboratory, Raj and Marcus were working silently at their computer stations. They nodded respectfully to Elon, but continued their tasks. The prototype device sat on its testing platform, modified since yesterday with new components. After 20 minutes, Haruki entered, looking tired but composed. How is she? Elon asked. Resting now, Haruki rubbed his eyes. The new treatment protocol is aggressive. Some days are harder than others. I'm sorry, Elon said sincerely. Then, getting to business, he added, I've come to make you an offer. He laid out the details of the Chief Theoretical Officer position, the salary, benefits, and stock options. Haruki listened politely but shook his head when Elon finished. I appreciate the offer truly, but I can't commit to regular hours at your facility. May needs me here. You misunderstand, Elon said. The position doesn't require you to come to SpaceX. We're building a facility near your home, walking distance, and your hours would be entirely flexible. Haruki hesitated. That's very generous. It's practical, Elon countered. Your mind is too valuable to waste driving strangers around Houston. A ghost of a smile crossed Haruki's face. If you hadn't needed that ride from the airport, we wouldn't be having this conversation. True, Elon agreed. Sometimes the universe works in strange ways. Haruki glanced toward the house, thinking of May. The medical benefits, the experimental treatments, the best specialists, any treatment protocol anywhere in the world. Haruki took a deep breath. Then I accept, but with one condition. Name it. Kira must be part of the team, not just as my assistant, but as a full engineer with her own role. Elon studied the older man's face. You really believe in her abilities, don't you? She's brilliant, Haruki said simply. Smarter than I was at her age. She understands my work intuitively, and she has something I lack, a fresh perspective. Done, Elon agreed. She'll need to complete her degree, but we can work around her class schedule. Actually, came a voice from the doorway, I've already spoken to my department head. They turned to see Kira standing there, a determined expression on her face. I'm switching to an accelerated program, she continued. I can finish my degree in 8 months while working here. After that, I'm all in. Elon nodded approvingly. Ambitious, I like that. A comfortable silence fell as the three of them considered the path ahead. Then Haruki spoke, his voice thoughtful. This team we're building for the Wormhole Project, it needs to be small, trustworthy, the right mix of skills. I agree, Elon said. Who do you have in mind? Dr. Alvarez, certainly. She has the perfect background in advanced propulsion theory. Haruki considered further. Raj has shown remarkable insight with the computational models. I'd want him involved, not Marcus. Elon asked, curious. Why not Marcus? Haruki shook his head slightly. Marcus is brilliant, but he's too conventional in his thinking, too bound by existing physics paradigms. Anyone else? Yes, but not from SpaceX. Haruki reached for a tablet and pulled up an academic profile. Dr. Sophia Chen at Caltech. She's doing groundbreaking work on quantum field manipulation. Her research parallels some of my theoretical work, though she doesn't realize it yet. Elon studied the profile. I'll reach out to her today. And one more, Haruki said, showing him another profile. Dr. Kwame O at MIT. His work on exotic materials could be critical for the containment systems we'll need. Elon nodded. I'll make it happen. Later that day, Elon, Haruki, and Kira sat at the Tanaka kitchen table, planning the future. May had joined them briefly, but tired quickly and returned to bed. Her absence hung in the air, a reminder of why their timeline felt so urgent. The facility should be complete within 3 weeks, Elon said, showing them renderings on his tablet. From the outside, it will look like a small data center. Inside, it will have everything you need. And security? Haruki asked. The highest level, physical and digital. Nothing goes in or out without proper clearance. Kira studied the plans with excitement. This is really happening, isn't it? It is, Elon confirmed. But we need to be strategic about how we proceed. The space-time propulsion system will be our public face, the project everyone knows about. The wormhole research happens behind closed doors, known only to the core team. Haruki nodded in agreement. A wise approach. The propulsion system alone will transform space travel. If that's all we achieve, it will still be revolutionary. But it won't be all we achieve, Kira said confidently. The conversation continued late into the evening, covering technical challenges, resource requirements, and potential applications of the technology. As night fell, Elon prepared to leave. At the door, Haruki stopped him. Thank you, he said quietly. Not just for the opportunity or the resources, but for believing in possibilities that others dismiss. That's been the story of my life, Elon replied with a small smile. People said usable rockets were impossible. They said electric cars would never replace gasoline. They said a private company couldn't succeed in space. He shrugged. I'm used to proving people wrong. Then we'll make a good team, Haruki said. As Elon drove away, he felt a sense of rightness, of pieces falling into place. The road ahead would be challenging, perhaps the most difficult technical challenge humanity had ever attempted. But for the first time, he believed interstellar travel might be possible within his lifetime. And it had all started with a chance Uber ride and an old man's notepad full of equations. 1 month later, Project Tanaka was in full swing. The new facility, disguised as a data center, stood just 2 blocks from the Tanaka home. Inside, it hummed with activity as the carefully selected team worked on 2 distinct but related projects. The space-time propulsion system progressed rapidly with SpaceX's resources. Haruki's theoretical concepts were taking physical form faster than he had ever imagined possible. The prototype had grown from tabletop size to a full testing model that occupied a significant portion of the main lab. Kira thrived in the new environment. Her university had allowed her to count her project work as credits toward her degree, recognizing the extraordinary opportunity. She moved between her classes and the lab, often working late into the night with an energy that impressed even Elon. But the wormhole project moved more slowly. Dr. Alvarez, Raj, and the newly recruited Dr. Chen and Dr. Oe spent hours in heated discussions, debating theoretical approaches and practical limitations. The power requirements are impossible, Dr. Oe insisted during one such session. Creating even a microscopic, stable wormhole would require more energy than a nuclear power plant produces in a year. That's assuming conventional power generation methods, Haruki countered. We need to think differently. Perhaps we could harness zero-point energy. Dr. Chen suggested, my research indicates, unproven, Dr. Oe interrupted. We need practical solutions. Kira, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. What about using the space-time distortion itself as a power source? If we can create even a small distortion, the energy differential between normal space and the distorted region could be tapped. The senior scientists fell silent, considering her suggestion. Bootstrapping, Haruki murmured, writing rapid calculations on the whiteboard. It could work. The initial energy input would need to be significant, but once the process begins, it could become self-sustaining. Dr. Chen finished, eyes wide with excitement. That's it. From that moment, the wormhole project gained momentum. Kira's insight had broken a major theoretical logjam. The team now had a direction, a potential solution to one of their biggest challenges. Every Wednesday evening, Elon flew in for project updates. These meetings became the highlight of the week, with team members eagerly showcasing their progress. Today, Dr. Alvarez reported proudly, the propulsion prototype passed all preliminary tests. We're achieving a 26% space-time distortion in the test chamber, which translates to approximately a 40% reduction in effective distance. Good, Elon nodded. Timeline for full-scale testing? 3 weeks, Raj said confidently. We've solved the containment field stability issues. Elon turned to Haruki. How's the wormhole project progressing? Haruki said cautiously. Dr. Gross-Chen has developed a new approach to the quantum field manipulations required for stability, and Dr. OA has created a promising new material for the containment rings. But Elon prompted, sensing hesitation. Haruki sighed. But we're still facing fundamental challenges with the mathematics. Some of the equations simply don't resolve within our current understanding of physics. The room fell silent. This was the frustrating reality of pushing beyond the frontiers of science. Sometimes the map simply ended, and new territory had to be charted from scratch. Show me, Elon said. Haruki led him to a whiteboard covered with complex equations. This section here describes the transition boundary between normal space and the wormhole threshold. The mathematics becomes problematic. Meaning? Meaning the numbers go to infinity, Dr. Chen explained, which suggests either our approach is flawed or our understanding of the underlying physics is incomplete. Haruki finished, and Elon studied the equations, his face unreadable. Then he looked up at the team. History is full of impossible equations that were later solved when someone approached them differently. Keep pushing. After the meeting, Elon found Kira alone in the lab, running simulations on her computer. You should go home and rest, he said. It's late. She shook her head without looking away from the screen. I'm close to something. I can feel it. Elon smiled. Her dedication reminded him of himself at that age. Your grandfather mentioned you were the one who suggested the energy bootstrap concept. Just a crazy idea that happened to work, she said modestly. No such thing as a crazy idea in this field. Only untested ones, Elon said, pulling up a chair beside her. How's your grandmother doing? Kira's face clouded. Some good days, some bad. The new treatments are tough on her, but she's fighting. She paused her simulation and turned to face him. Can I ask you something personal? Sure. Why are you doing this? The Mars mission makes sense. It's practical, achievable, commercially viable eventually. But this. She gestured to the wormhole project materials. This might not work. It might take decades. It might never be profitable. Elon considered the question carefully. Do you know why I started SpaceX? To make humans a multiplanetary species? Yes, but why? Because I read too much science fiction as a kid? Because I wanted to see people on Mars in my lifetime? He shook his head. It's bigger than that. I believe expanding beyond Earth is essential for human consciousness to survive long term. If we stay on one planet, eventually something will wipe us out. An asteroid, a pandemic, nuclear war, AI gone wrong. Pick your apocalypse. And the wormhole project? Kira prompted. Same principle, larger scale. Mars is just the beginning. If we want humanity to truly thrive, to spread consciousness throughout the galaxy, we need this. He pointed to her simulation. We need to reach the stars. Your grandfather's work might make that possible. Kira nodded slowly. Thank you for believing in him when no one else would. I know what it's like to have people dismiss your ideas, Elon said simply. The next morning, Haruki arrived at the lab to find most of the team gathered around Kira's workstation, expressions of disbelief on their faces. What's happening, he asked. Raj turned, eyes wide. Kira may have solved the transition boundary problem. What? How? Dr. Chen moved aside so Haruki could see the screen. She approached it from a higher dimensional perspective. Instead of trying to resolve the infinity in 3-dimensional space, she created a mathematical model with 11 dimensions. String theory dimensions, Haruki murmured, scanning the equations. Exactly, Dr. Osei said. And when projected back into 3-dimensional space, the infinities cancel out. Haruki finished, amazed. The boundary becomes stable. Kira looked exhausted but triumphant. It still needs refinement, but the basic approach works. The simulations are clean. Aroy placed a hand on his granddaughter's shoulder, overcome with pride. I always knew you were brilliant, but this... The moment was interrupted when Marcus burst into the lab looking upset. Dr. Alvarez wants everyone in the main testing chamber. There's a problem with the propulsion prototype. They hurried to the larger lab where Dr. Alvarez stood beside the prototype, face grim. The containment field failed during the latest test, she explained. The space-time distortion became unstable. We nearly had a cascading collapse. Damage? Haruki asked, examining the prototype. Minimal to the hardware, but the implications are serious. If this had happened at full power, she didn't need to finish the thought. A cascading space-time collapse could have catastrophic consequences. We need to redesign the containment system, Raj said. The current configuration can't handle the distortion levels we're trying to achieve. Haruki frowned. That will set us back months. Better months than a disaster, Dr. Alvarez replied firmly. A tense discussion followed, with team members arguing about whether to scale back their goals or push forward with a redesign. The debate grew heated, frustrations rising as weeks of progress seemed suddenly threatened. Enough, Haruki finally said, his voice cutting through the arguments. This is precisely why we test. Better to find problems now than during actual implementation. He turned to a whiteboard and began sketching a new containment design. We'll adapt some principles from Kira's higher dimensional approach. If we reconceptualize the containment field as a hyperdimensional bubble rather than a simple electromagnetic barrier. The team gathered around, arguments forgotten, as Haruki's explanation unfolded. By evening, they had a new design approach that promised greater stability. When Elon called for his daily update, Dr. Alvarez explained both the setback and the new solution. So we're delayed, but not defeated, Elon summarized. Exactly, she confirmed. And there's more. Kira has made a breakthrough on the wormhole mathematics. It might be the key we've been looking for. Progress on both fronts, then, Elon said, satisfaction evident in his voice. Keep pushing. I'll be there tomorrow to see the new designs. After the call, Haruki found Kira in the break room, slumped at a table, finally succumbing to exhaustion after 36 hours without sleep. Go home, he said gently. Get some rest. The equations will still be here tomorrow. She rubbed her eyes. I just want to finish the simulation. May wants to see you, Haruki said. She's having a good day, asking about your work. That got Kira's attention. Good days had become precious moments to be treasured. Okay, she agreed, gathering her things. But I'll be back early tomorrow. As they walked home together, Haruki marveled at how much had changed in just a few months. From driving an Uber and tinkering with equations in his garage, he now led one of the most advanced scientific projects on the planet. His life's work was no longer a lonely pursuit, but a team effort with the brightest minds and best resources. And at the center of it all was Kira, his granddaughter, his legacy. She would carry his work forward, perhaps even beyond what he had imagined. The future stretched before them, full of challenges but also unprecedented possibilities. It had all started with a chance Uber ride and an old man's notepad, but where it would end, that remained to be seen. Weeks passed. The redesigned propulsion prototype was nearly complete, incorporating elements of Kira's higher dimensional mathematics. The wormhole project continued in parallel, making steady but slower progress. One evening, Haruki sat beside May's bed, holding her thin hand as she slept. The cancer treatments had taken their toll, leaving her weaker than before. The doctors remained cautiously optimistic, but Haruki could see the truth in their eyes when they reviewed her scans. Time was running out. He gazed at her peaceful face, remembering their first meeting at college, their wedding day, the birth of their children, and later the joy of watching Kira grow. Through it all, May had been his constant, his anchor, believing in him even when his ideas seemed impossible. I need to finish this, May, he whispered, though she couldn't hear him. For both of us, for everything we dreamed about. As he watched her sleep, something clicked in his mind. A connection between two seemingly unrelated concepts, the containment field stability issue and the wormhole threshold problem. They were mirror images of each other, approaching the same fundamental challenge from opposite directions. Haruki carefully released May's hand and moved to the small desk in the corner of the bedroom. He began writing frantically, equations flowing from his pen as if they'd been waiting just below the surface of his consciousness. Hours passed as he worked, pausing only to check on May. By dawn, he had filled dozens of pages with calculations and diagrams. The solution had been there all along, hidden in plain sight. Haruki called the lab. "Get everyone in now! Now! I found something." By 7 a.m., the core team had assembled, bleary-eyed but curious. Haruki stood before them, energized despite his sleepless night. "We've been approaching this wrong," he began, taping his handwritten pages to the wall. "We've treated the propulsion system and the wormhole as separate challenges, but they're actually two expressions of the same underlying principle." He explained his realization, the mathematical connections between the two projects, the elegant symmetry that had eluded them until now. The stability problem in the propulsion system is actually a miniature version of the wormhole threshold. By solving one, we solve both. Dr. Chen studied the equations, eyes widening. This works. The math checks out. Dr. Alvarez was already running simulations on her tablet. If this is right, we could have a functional propulsion prototype within days, not weeks. "And the wormhole project?" Elon asked from the doorway. No one had noticed him arrive. "Significantly accelerated," Haruki replied. "We can build a microscale test device immediately." Elon studied Haruki's face. "What triggered this breakthrough?" Haruki hesitated. I was watching her sleep, thinking about time running out. My mind made connections it hadn't before." Elon nodded, understanding. "Let's get to work then." The next 48 hours were a blur of activity. The team split into two groups, one implementing Haruki's insights into the propulsion prototype, the other building the microscale wormhole test device. Kira worked alongside her grandfather, translating his handwritten notes into formal mathematical models. She caught a small error in one equation, adjusted a parameter in another. Their collaboration was seamless, each anticipating the other's thoughts. "We should call it the Tanaka Drive," Dr. Alvarez suggested as they worked. Haruki shook his head. No names yet. Let's make sure it works first." By the third day, both devices were ready for testing. The propulsion prototype gleamed under the laboratory lights, its redesigned containment field generators humming softly. The microscale wormhole device was smaller, about the size of a microwave, but far more complex internally. Which one first? Elon asked propulsion. Haruki decided it's the more stable of the two. They gathered in the testing chamber, protected behind reinforced glass. Dr. Alvarez initiated the startup sequence. The prototype powered up smoothly, energy levels rising steadily as the containment field took shape. Field stability at 98%, Raj reported, power at 60% and climbing. Haruki watched the readouts intently. This was the point where the previous design had failed, but now the numbers held steady. The containment field remained stable as power reached 70%, then 80%. Space-time distortion began. Dr. Chen announced, measuring at 15% and increasing. On a monitor, they could see the test area inside the prototype. A small metal sphere hung suspended in the center. As the space-time distortion increased, the sphere appeared to blur slightly, its edges becoming less distinct. Distortion at 30%, Dr. Chen continued, 35%, 40%. The metal sphere now appeared to be in two places simultaneously, its actual location and a point several centimeters away. The effect was subtle but unmistakable. "It's working," Kira whispered, gripping her grandfather's arm. "It's actually working." "Power at maximum," Raj reported. "Field stability holding at 97%. Distortion at 52%, Dr. Chen said, voice trembling with excitement. "That's a new record." The metal sphere now existed in a smeared state across space, visibly stretched between two distinct points without physically moving. This was space-time manipulation in action, the first step toward a technology that could revolutionize space travel. Test complete, Dr. Alvarez announced after 5 minutes of stable operation. Initiating shutdown sequence. As the prototype powered down, the team erupted into cheers and applause. Years of theoretical work had finally produced tangible results. Haruki stood silently, overwhelmed by the moment. "Congratulations," Elon said, shaking his hand. "This changes everything." They took a short break to celebrate before moving on to the wormhole device. This test would be even more challenging, not just distorting space-time, but actually puncturing it, creating a microscopic tunnel between 2 points. "We'll start with minimal power," Haruki cautioned as they prepared. "The goal is just to detect the formation of a proto-wormhole, not create anything stable yet." The wormhole device was configured to attempt linking 2 points just millimeters apart, a minuscule distance physically, but a monumental leap conceptually. If successful, it would be humanity's first deliberate creation of a wormhole, however tiny. Initiating startup sequence, Raj announced. The device hummed to life, quieter than the propulsion prototype, but somehow more ominous. Inside its sealed chamber, two precisely aligned emitters faced each other, ready to create the opposing space-time distortions that, according to theory, would tear a hole in the fabric of reality itself. Power at 30%, Dr. Chen reported. Threshold field forming on the monitors. Sensitive instruments measured subtle changes in the quantum field between the emitters. The mathematics predicted that at a certain threshold, the field would collapse inward, creating the wormhole aperture. 40% power, 50%. Haruki held his breath. This was the moment of truth. Either his life's work would be validated or decades of theory would crumble. Quantum fluctuations increasing, Dr. O noted, studying another readout, field stability dropping to 85%. That's expected, Haruki said quickly. Continue. 60 power, 65%. Suddenly the instruments spiked. A tiny but unmistakable anomaly appeared between the emitters, a pinprick of distorted space where the normal laws of physics no longer applied. Proto-wormhole forming, Dr. Chen exclaimed. Diameter 0.03 millimeters and stable. The team stared in awe at the readings. Though invisible to the naked eye, the instruments confirmed a microscopic wormhole had formed between the emitters, a tunnel in space-time, barely wider than a human hair, maintaining for 30 seconds. 30 seconds, Haruki instructed, his voice steady despite his racing heart. The 30 seconds stretched into an eternity as they watched the readouts, hardly daring to breathe. The proto-wormhole remained stable, its quantum signature clear and unmistakable. Test complete, Haruki finally said. Power down. As the device shut down, the proto-wormhole collapsed, leaving reality intact once more. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Elon broke the silence. You did it, he said simply. You actually did it. The room erupted in celebration again, louder than before. Kira hugged her grandfather tightly, tears streaming down her face. The other scientists exchanged incredulous looks, the magnitude of their achievement still sinking in. I need to tell May, Haruki said, disengaging gently from Kira's embrace. She should know. He hurried home, heart racing with excitement. Pushing open the bedroom door, he found May awake, sitting up against her pillows. It worked, he said, taking her hands in his. Both projects, the propulsion system and even the wormhole. We created an actual wormhole, May. Microscopic, but real. May's tired face lit up with joy. I knew you would do it, Haruki. I always knew. As he described the tests to her, Haruki felt a weight lifting from his shoulders. For decades, his theories had existed only on paper, dismissed by colleagues, relegated to the realm of science fiction. Now, they were proven reality with limitless potential for the future. That night, as the team celebrated at the Tanaka home, Elon pulled Haruki aside. What's next? He asked. Haruki looked around at the team, at Kira, animatedly explaining the wormhole test to May, at the scientists discussing future applications, at the new family they had formed around this shared dream. Now, he said with quiet confidence, we scale up. The mood at Project Tanaka remained euphoric in the days following the breakthrough. News of the successful tests spread through SpaceX, though the details remained classified. Only the core team knew they had created an actual wormhole, however tiny. To the rest of the company, it was simply an advanced propulsion test. Scaling up began immediately. The propulsion system would be the first to reach full size, with plans to integrate it into a test vehicle within months. The wormhole project would proceed more cautiously, incrementally increasing the aperture size while ensuring stability. 3 weeks after the breakthrough, Haruki was reviewing design modifications with Dr. Alvarez when his phone rang. It was Kira, her voice tight with worry. Grandma collapsed. The ambulance is taking her to Methodist Hospital. Meet us there. Haruki dropped everything and ran. Dr. Alvarez drove him to the hospital, where they found Kira in the emergency waiting room, pale and frightened. What happened? Haruki asked, taking her hands. She was having tea in the kitchen, Kira explained, her voice shaking. She stood up to get something and just fell. She couldn't get up again. She was so confused. A doctor approached them, his face serious. Mr. Tanaka, I'm Dr. Patel. We've taken your wife for an MRI. Her symptoms suggest the cancer may have spread to her brain. Haruki felt the floor tilt beneath him. How? How bad? We won't know until we see the scans, Dr. Patel said gently, but I want to prepare you. If there are brain metastases, her condition is very serious. The next hours passed in a blur of medical terminology and grim faces. The MRI confirmed what they feared. The cancer had spread to May's brain, forming several small tumors. Her condition was critical. Haruki sat by her bedside in the ICU, watching her breathe. She hadn't regained full consciousness, drifting in and out of awareness. When awake, she sometimes recognized him, sometimes didn't. Elon arrived that evening, having flown in when he heard the news. He found Haruki still sitting vigil, unchanged since morning. How is she? Elon asked quietly. Dying, Haruki replied, his voice hollow. The doctors give her weeks, maybe a month. Elon placed a hand on the older man's shoulder. I'm sorry, what can I do? There's nothing anyone can do now. Haruki's eyes never left May's face. 42 years together, and now his voice broke. You should rest, Elon suggested. Kira can stay with her for a while. Haruki shook his head. I need to be here. When she wakes up, she gets confused if I'm not here. Elon nodded in understanding. The team sends their love. The projects are on hold until... No, Haruki interrupted, looking up for the first time. The work continues, especially now. Haruki, no one expects you to. I need this, Elon. Need to know it wasn't all for nothing. His gaze returned to May. She believed in me when no one else did, supported me through years of rejection. I have to finish this while she's still here, still aware enough to understand what we've accomplished. Elon studied the older man's face, recognizing the determination behind the grief. All right, but not at the expense of your time with her. I'll work from here, Haruki said. Bring me the data, the simulations. I can review them while sitting with her. For the next week, the hospital room became Haruki's second office. Laptop computers and tablets surrounded May's bed. Team members visited daily, bringing updates and taking away Haruki's notes and instructions. Kira split her time between the lab and the hospital, ensuring the projects moved forward while supporting her grandfather. The doctors tried various treatments to reduce the brain tumors, but nothing seemed to work. May continued to decline. One afternoon, while Haruki dozed in the chair beside her bed, May woke with surprising clarity. Haruki, she called softly. He was instantly alert. I'm here, my love. How is your STAR project? She asked, using their old private name for his space-time research. Making progress? He said, taking her hand. The propulsion system is almost ready for vehicle testing. May smiled weakly. And the wormhole? Stable at 0.5 millimeter now? Still tiny, but growing. Good. She squeezed his hand with what little strength she had. You've lived your dream. After all, our dream, he corrected gently. You need to promise me something, May said, her voice suddenly urgent. Don't stop when I'm gone. Finish it all the way. May, don't talk like that. The doctors are trying a new treatment tomorrow. Promise me, Haruki, she insisted. No matter what happens, see it through. Tears filled his eyes. I promise, she nodded, satisfied, then turned her attention to the hospital room door. Is Elon here today? Not yet. He's coming this evening. I need to speak with him alone. Haruki frowned. About what? Just some things I want to say, May replied mysteriously. When Elon arrived that evening, Haruki reluctantly stepped out, leaving them alone, as May had requested. Their conversation lasted 15 minutes. When Haruki returned, May was asleep again, and Elon looked thoughtful. What did she say to you? Haruki asked. Private things, Elon replied, but I can tell you, she extracted a promise from me just as she did from you. What promise? To make sure you fulfill your potential, to help you finish what you started, no matter what obstacles arise. Elon smiled slightly. She's a formidable woman, your wife. Yes, Haruki agreed. She always has been. After another week in the hospital, May stabilized enough to return home with hospice care. A hospital bed was set up in their bedroom with medical equipment and visiting nurses to manage her pain and comfort. The team adjusted their workflow to accommodate Haruki's need to be at home. Dr. Alvarez took over day-to-day management of both projects, with Haruki reviewing progress each evening. Hira became the bridge between her grandfather and the lab, bringing materials back and forth. Despite the circumstances, work continued to advance. The propulsion system was now integrated into a test vehicle, a modified SpaceX capsule. that would attempt the first real-world application of space-time distortion technology. The wormhole project reached a new milestone, a stable aperture 1 centimeter in diameter. Though tiny, it was large enough to conduct the first matter transmission test, sending a single atom through the wormhole from one side to the other. Elon brought the news of this success to Haruki personally, finding him sitting beside May's bed as always. She was asleep, her breathing shallow but peaceful. 1 centimeter, stable and successful matter transmission, Elon reported quietly. Dr. Chen confirmed the quantum signature of the atom was identical before and after passage, no degradation. Haruki nodded, a ghost of a smile crossing his face. The scaling equations are holding true, then we should be able to reach 5 centimeters within a month. They discussed technical details for a while, keeping their voices low. Then Elon changed the subject. The board is asking questions about Project Tanaka's budget. It's exceeded all initial projections. Are they threatening to cut funding? Haruki asked, suddenly alert. No, I won't allow that. Elon's tone left no room for doubt. But we need to show progress toward practical applications. The propulsion test next week will help with that. And if it fails, it won't, Elon said confidently. Your math is solid. The simulations are perfect. Yet, despite his reassurances, both men knew the risks. Scaling up experimental technology always brought new challenges, unforeseen complications. The propulsion test was a crucial milestone, not just scientifically, but politically. As Elon prepared to leave, May stirred, opening her eyes. Elon, she said faintly, remember your promise. I will, Mrs. Tanaka, he replied, bowing slightly to her. Rest well. After he left, Haruki adjusted May's blankets and gave her the pain medication the nurse had prepared. As she drifted back to sleep, he returned to his notes, working quietly beside her through the night. The breakthrough that had seemed to change everything was now overshadowed by May's illness, but her determination to see the project completed kept Haruki going, even as his heart broke watching her slip away. The race was no longer just against technical challenges or corporate politics. It was a race against time itself, the most precious and unforgiving resource of all. The morning of the propulsion test arrived with clear skies over the SpaceX facility. The modified capsule sat on its platform, surrounded by sensors and monitoring equipment. It contained no human passengers, just instruments to measure the effects of the space-time distortion drive. Haruki watched the preparations via video link from his bedroom, where May slept peacefully after a difficult night. Kira sat beside him, ready to relay his instructions to the team if needed. All systems are go, Dr. Alvarez reported from the test site. Final checks complete. We're ready to initiate on your command. Haruki hesitated, his eyes moving from the video screen to May and back again. This was the moment he had worked toward for decades, the first real-world test of his space-time propulsion theory. Proceed, he said quietly. The test sequence began on the screen. The capsule hummed to life, power readings climbing steadily. The containment field formed around it, creating the bubble of altered space-time that would, if successful, reduce the effective distance between the capsule and its target, 5 kilometers away. Field stability at 98%, Raj reported. Power at 70% and climbing. Haruki leaned forward, anxiety momentarily replacing exhaustion. This was the critical phase where previous prototypes had struggled. 80% power, 90%. The capsule began to blur slightly as the space-time distortion increased. Its edges seemed to stretch toward the target point, creating a strange visual effect, like heat shimmer on a hot road. Distortion at 40%, 45%, 50%. Suddenly, May stirred beside him. Haruki, she called weakly. Torn between the test and his wife, Haruki moved to her side, taking her hand while still watching the screen. I'm here, May. We're running the big test today. Her eyes fluttered open. Is it working? Before he could answer, Dr. Chen's excited voice came through the speakers. Distortion at 60%. That's beyond our lab tests. Haruki squeezed May's hand. Yes, my love, it's working. A slight smile crossed her pale face. Good. Maximum power achieved, Raj announced. Field stability holding at 97%, distortion at 65%, and steady. Dr. Alvarez appeared on screen, beaming, initiating transit sequence now. This was the moment of truth. The capsule would attempt to move through the distorted space-time, effectively jumping to its target location without traversing the physical distance between. Transit in 3, 2, 1. On the screen, the capsule seemed to stretch impossibly thin, then vanished. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then cheers erupted as the monitoring stations reported success. The capsule had reappeared precisely at the target coordinates. "Transit confirmed," Dr. Alvarez shouted over the celebration. "Perfect positioning. The Tanaka drive works." Kira threw her arms around her grandfather, tears streaming down her face. "You did it, Grandpa. You really did it." Haruki turned to May, his own eyes wet with tears. "Did you hear that? It worked perfectly." May nodded weakly. "I always knew it would." She squeezed his hand. "Now you can reach the stars." The successful test changed everything. Within days, Elon had secured full board approval for continued funding of Project Tanaka. The space-time propulsion system, now officially dubbed the Tanaka Drive, would move into production development for integration into future SpaceX vehicles. The wormhole project received increased resources as well. A larger testing chamber was constructed with the goal of creating a stable aperture large enough to transmit significant objects between points. Haruki split his time between overseeing these developments and caring for May. Though the hospice nurses handled her medical needs, he refused to leave her side for long. He had a small workstation set up beside her bed, where he could review data and provide guidance to the team. 2 weeks after the successful propulsion test, May had a particularly good day. She was alert and in less pain than usual, able to sit up and even eat a small meal. Hira brought her favorite flowers, pink peonies, and arranged them where she could see them from her bed. "Tell me about the wormhole," May asked as evening fell. "How large is it now?" 5 centimeter, Haruki reported proudly. "Stable for up to 30 minutes. We've transmitted complex molecules through it successfully." "What's next?" 10 centimeters, large enough for small objects. He showed her a simulation on his tablet. "If we can maintain stability at that size, we'll have proven the scaling equations are correct. From there, it's just a matter of power and engineering to reach useful dimensions." May nodded, satisfied. "And when will you tell Elon the last secret?" Haruki looked startled. "What do you mean?" "I may be sick, but I'm not blind," she said, with a touch of her old spirit. "You're still holding something back, something about the wormhole technology." He sighed, setting down the tablet. After 42 years of marriage, he couldn't hide anything from her. "You're right. There is one more piece I haven't shared. The final equations that would allow for..." "Allow for what?" May asked. "Control over the temporal aspects of the wormhole," he said quietly. "Not just connecting 2 points in space, but potentially 2 points in time." May's eyes widened. "Time travel? That's what you've been hiding?" "Theoretical time travel," he corrected, "and highly constrained. But yes, the mathematics suggest it might be possible. Why keep it secret?" May asked. Haruki looked troubled. "The implications are too dangerous, May. If such technology fell into the wrong hands, do you trust Elon with space travel?" "Yes. With this?" He shook his head slowly. "I don't know if anyone should have this knowledge." May reached for his hand. "Then destroy it. Burn your notes, delete the files." "I've considered that," he admitted. "But what if it could be used safely under the right conditions? What if it could benefit humanity or destroy it?" May said softly, "You need to decide, Haruki." Before she finished the sentence, she didn't need to. The next morning, Haruki made his decision. He asked Kira to gather the core team at the house that afternoon. They met in the living room, with the bedroom door left open so May could listen from her bed. "I have something important to share," Haruki began. "Something I've kept to myself until now." He explained about the temporal equations, the theoretical possibility of using wormhole technology to create connections not just across space, but across time. The team listened in stunned silence. "I've decided this knowledge is too important to die with me," Haruki continued, "but also too dangerous to share widely. I'm entrusting it to all of you, to use wisely, to protect carefully, and to implement only if you're absolutely certain it can be controlled." He handed each of them a sealed envelope. "These contain key components of the equations. No single envelope holds the complete solution. You'll need to work together to understand the full implications, which is exactly as it should be." Dr. Meade Alvarez looked at her envelope with awe and trepidation. "Why now, Haruki?" she asked. He glanced toward the bedroom where May rested, because time is precious, and because some secrets are too important to keep forever. That evening, after the team had gone, Haruki sat with Mei as the sunset painted the room in gold. He read to her from her favorite book of poetry until she fell asleep, her breathing growing more labored with each passing day. Kira found him there hours later, still holding Mei's hand, his face reflecting both grief and determination. "The team is making preparations for the 10-centimeter test," she said softly. "They want you to be there." Haruki shook his head. "My place is here." "Grandma would want you to go," Kira insisted. "Just for a few hours. I'll stay with her." After much persuasion, Haruki agreed. The next morning, he kissed Mei gently and headed to the lab. For the first time in weeks, the wormhole chamber had been upgraded substantially, now occupying a dedicated room with enhanced power systems and monitoring equipment. The target was ambitious, a stable 10-centimeter aperture maintained for 1 hour with continuous matter transmission tests. As the team made final preparations, Haruki felt a strange mixture of pride and melancholy. His life's work was reaching fruition, but the person who had supported him through it all might not live to see its completion. "We're ready to begin," Dr. Chen announced. "All systems nominal." Haruki nodded. "Proceed." The familiar hum of the equipment filled the room as power flowed into the wormhole generators. On the monitors, they could see the quantum field fluctuations that preceded aperture formation. "Field collapsing," Dr. O reported. "Wormhole forming at 2 centimeters, 4 centimeters." They held their breath as the aperture continued to expand, approaching the target size. At 8 centimeters, previous tests had encountered stability issues, but Haruki's latest refinements seemed to be working. 10 centimeters, aperture stable. A cheer went up from the team. On the central monitor, they could actually see the wormhole now, a perfect circle of distorted space, like a hole punched through reality itself. "Initiating matter transmission test," Dr. Chen announced. A robotic arm moved forward, holding a small cube of specially prepared material. As they watched, it inserted the cube into the wormhole. For a moment, the cube seemed to stretch impossibly thin, then vanished. On another monitor, they could see a second robotic arm positioned at the other terminus of the wormhole, waiting to receive the transmitted matter. Seconds ticked by with no result. "Transmission delay noted," Dr. Chen said, frowning. "Running diagnostics." Suddenly, the cube appeared at the receiving end, perfectly intact. The team erupted in cheers again. Haruki smiled, but his eyes went to his phone. No messages from Kira. Mei was still stable. The tests continued successfully for the next hour, with various materials being transmitted through the wormhole without degradation. The aperture remained perfectly stable at 10 centimeters, a size sufficient for meaningful applications. "We could send scientific instruments through," Dr. Alvarez noted excitedly. "Sample return from dangerous environments without human risk or emergency medical supplies to remote locations," Dr. O added. "All of that and more," Haruki agreed. "But first, we need to ensure long-term stability and develop portable emitters." His phone buzzed. A text from Kira. "Come home now." Without a word, Haruki handed control to Dr. Alvarez and rushed out. The short drive home felt endless. When he arrived, he found Kira on the porch, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry, Grandpa," she sobbed. "She's gone. She went so peacefully, just slipped away." Haruki stood frozen, unable to process her words. Then, slowly, he moved past Kira into the house, to the bedroom where Mei lay still and silent, her battle finally over. He sat beside her, taking her hand one last time. It was still warm. "We did it, Mei," he whispered. "The wormhole worked perfectly. 10 centimeters stable for over an hour, just as I promised you." Though grief overwhelmed him, a small part of Haruki felt relief that Mei had lived to see his dreams realized, to know that her faith in him had been justified. She had been his motivation, his strength, his reason for persevering when all seemed lost. Now, he would finish what they had started together, for her memory, for the future, for the stars that waited. In the days following Mei's funeral, Haruki withdrew into himself. He attended the memorial service in a daze, barely registering the condolences offered by friends and colleagues. The Tanaka project team came in full, as did Elon, who remained respectfully in the background, allowing Haruki his grief. Kira managed the practical matters, the death certificate, the funeral arrangements, the steady stream of visitors bringing food and memories. She kept the household running while worrying about her grandfather, who spent hours sitting silently in his workshop, surrounded by equations that now seemed hollow without May to share them with. A week passed, then two. Haruki remained distant, reviewing data without enthusiasm, offering corrections and suggestions by rote. The team continued their work, pushing forward with both the propulsion system and the wormhole project. But without Haruki's passionate guidance, a vital spark was missing. One evening, Elon came to the house alone. He found Haruki in the garage, staring at May's photo on his desk. "We miss you at the lab," Elon said simply. Haruki nodded without turning. "The work continues." "The work needs you," Elon said. "Does it?" Haruki finally looked up. "Dr. Alvarez is more than capable. Kira understands the principles as well as I do. The prototype is working. What more is needed?" Elon took a seat across from him. "Your vision, your understanding of where this all leads." "I know where it leads," Haruki said, his voice suddenly bitter. "To the stars. But what does it matter now? May will never see them." They sat in silence for a long moment. Then Elon spoke again, his tone gentle but firm. "Before she died, May made me promise something. She made me swear I would help you finish what you started, no matter what obstacles arose." He leaned forward. "I didn't realize the biggest obstacle might be you." Haruki's expression hardened. "You don't understand what I've lost." "No, I don't," Elon agreed. "But I do understand what we all stand to lose if you give up now. Humanity's future. Among the stars. The legacy May believed in so deeply." As they talked, Kira entered quietly, listening from the doorway. "The vehicle integration testing is scheduled for Thursday," Elon continued. "The first full-scale Tanaka drive installed in a proper spacecraft. It's a major milestone." "Your major milestone." "I know," Haruki sighed. "Will you be there?" Before Haruki could answer, Kira stepped forward. "Grandpa, I found something in Grandma's things." She held out a small envelope, Haruki's name written on it in May's delicate handwriting. "I think she meant for you to find this." After Haruki took the envelope with trembling hands, inside was a single sheet of paper covered in May's writing. "My dearest Haruki, if you're reading this, I have left this world ahead of you. Don't be sad for too long. We had 42 beautiful years together, more than many are granted. You once told me that space travel was about conquering the darkness between stars. I believe your work will do just that. But right now you are in your own darkness, grieving. You must find your way through it, just as your ships will find their way through space. Remember your promise to me. Finish what we started. See it through to the end, not for me, but for the future, for all the dreamers who will follow. You once said we were made of stardust. Now I am returning to the stars. Find me there when your work is done. All my love, May." Tears streamed down Haruki's face as he read. Kira placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, her own eyes wet. "She knew you too well," Kira said softly. "Knew you might lose your way without her." Haruki carefully folded the letter and placed it in his pocket, close to his heart. When he looked up, his eyes had changed. The spark had returned. "Thursday," he said to Elon. "The vehicle test. I'll be there." The next morning, Haruki arrived at the lab before anyone else. When the team began filing in, they found him at the main whiteboard, already deep in calculations, a renewed energy in his movements. "We need to adjust the field harmonics," he announced without preamble. "The current configuration is inefficient for the spacecraft integration." Dr. Alvarez exchanged a glance with Raj. "Welcome back," she said simply. The days leading up to the test were a flurry of activity. The Tanaka drive had been installed in a modified Dragon capsule, designed to make a controlled jump from the SpaceX facility to a point in orbit, a distance of approximately 300 kilometers. If successful, it would be the first human-made object to utilize space-time distortion for actual space travel. The morning of the test arrived. The launch pad bustled with activity as final preparations were made. Security was tight, though the existence of the Tanaka drive was now public knowledge. Its exact mechanism remained classified. In the control room, Haruki sat at a dedicated console, Kira beside him. The rest of the core team occupied nearby stations, monitoring different aspects of the test. Elon stood at the center, overseeing the operation. 10 minutes, the flight director announced. All systems go. As the countdown proceeded, Haruki felt a strange calm settle over him. For decades, his work had existed only on paper, then in small laboratory tests. Now it would make the leap to practical application, the beginning of a new era in space travel. T-minus 2 minutes. The capsule powered up its systems, coming online one by one. The Tanaka drive hummed to life, creating the space-time distortion field that would enable the jump to orbit. T-minus 1 minute. Haruki reached into his pocket, touching May's letter for reassurance. "This is for you," he whispered. T-minus 30 seconds. 20. 10. The room fell silent as the final countdown began. 10, 3, 2, 1. Initiate jump sequence. On the main screen, they watched as the capsule seemed to blur, its edges becoming indistinct as the space-time field reached maximum distortion. For a breathless moment, nothing happened. Then, the capsule simply vanished. All eyes turned to the orbital tracking stations. If successful, the capsule should appear in low Earth orbit, approximately 300 kilometers above the launch site. Seconds stretched into an eternity. Haruki gripped the edge of his console, heart pounding. Orbital tracking station reports contact, a controller suddenly announced. Positive identification. Dragon capsule confirmed in target orbit. The control room erupted in cheers and applause. Kira threw her arms around her grandfather, laughing and crying at once. The team members embraced each other, the magnitude of their achievement sinking in. They had just sent an object directly from Earth's surface to orbit, without a conventional launch, without the enormous fuel expenditure, without the dangers of atmospheric ascent. The implications were staggering. As the celebration continued, Haruki's phone rang. It was Dr. Chen calling from the wormhole lab. "We just achieved a 20-centimeter stable aperture," she reported, her voice excited. "Double our previous record. It's holding perfectly." Haruki shared the news with the team, prompting another round of cheers. Both projects were advancing rapidly now, feeding off each other's successes. Amid the celebration, Elon approached Haruki with a serious expression. "There's something we need to discuss. The next phase." They moved to a private office away from the noise. Elon closed the door and turned to face Haruki. "The board wants to commercialize the Tanaka drive immediately. Satellite deployments first, then cargo to our Mars base and eventually human transport." "That was always the plan," Haruki nodded. "The propulsion system is ready, and the wormhole project." Aroi hesitated. "That's more complicated. We're making extraordinary progress." "But the implications, the risks, I understand," Elon said. "But decisions need to be made next week. NASA is sending the Perseverance 2 rover to Mars. They've requested permission to install a wormhole receiver there." Haruki's eyes widened. "They want to create a permanent wormhole link between Earth and Mars?" "Exactly. A communications link at first, then small payload transfers. Eventually, perhaps human transit." Elon studied Haruki's reaction. "It would be the first interplanetary wormhole, a historic achievement." Haruki's mind raced with the implications. "The technology isn't ready for that scale yet. We'd need to increase the aperture size substantially, ensure perfect stability." "Can it be done?" "Theoretically, yes, but I'd want more tests, more safeguards." Elon nodded. "I understand your caution, but opportunity doesn't always wait for perfect readiness." He placed a hand on Haruki's shoulder. "This is your decision, Haruki. Your life's work. If you say we wait, we wait." Haruki closed his eyes, thinking of May's letter. "Finish what we started. See it through to the end." "When does NASA need our answer?" he asked. "Tomorrow. The rover launches in 8 days." "And if we agree, how quickly would we need to have the technology ready?" "The receiver would need to be completed within 3 days for pre-launch integration." Haruki took a deep breath. "I'll give you my decision in the morning." That night, Haruki sat in his workshop at home, surrounded by the equations and designs that had consumed his life. The choice before him was monumental. Proceeding with the Mars wormhole link would accelerate humanity's reach into space by decades, perhaps centuries. But it also meant moving forward without the exhaustive testing his cautious nature preferred. Kira found him there near midnight, still deliberating. She placed a cup of tea beside him and sat down. "What would Grandma say?" she asked gently. Haruki smiled sadly. "She would tell me to be bold, to trust in my work." He looked at his granddaughter. "What do you think?" "I think the math is solid, the tests are promising, and the opportunity is extraordinary." She paused. "But it's not my decision to make." "No," Haruki agreed. "It's mine, and I must make it by morning." As dawn broke, Haruki arrived at the SpaceX facility, his decision made. Elon was waiting in the conference room, along with several NASA officials who had flown in overnight. "We'll do it," Haruki announced without preamble. We'll build the wormhole receiver for Perseverance 2, but with conditions. He outlined his requirements: additional safety protocols, redundant systems, and a phased approach to the wormhole use. The NASA officials exchanged glances and nodded in agreement. One more thing, Haruki added. If this succeeds, if we establish a stable Earth-Mars wormhole link, I want Kira to lead the next phase of research. Elon raised an eyebrow. You're stepping down? Not stepping down, stepping back. It's time for the next generation to take the lead. Haruki smiled slightly. Besides, I have one more project I want to pursue, something personal. As the meeting concluded and plans were set in motion, Haruki found himself filled with a sense of both completion and a new beginning. The choice had been made. Humanity would take its next giant leap among the stars, guided by the theories he had developed in obscurity for so many years. And somewhere, he'd like to think, May was watching, approving, waiting. 3 days passed in a blur of activity. The wormhole receiver, a compact device about the size of a microwave oven, was completed just hours before the deadline. After rigorous testing, it was carefully packed and flown to Cape Canaveral for integration with the Perseverance 2 rover. Haruki, Kira, and the core team traveled to Florida to witness the launch. They stood with Elon and the NASA officials on the observation deck as the countdown reached its final moments. The massive rocket ignited, lifting slowly from the pad before accelerating into the clear blue sky, carrying humanity's first interplanetary wormhole technology toward Mars. Now we wait, Haruki said quietly as the rocket disappeared from view. The Mars journey would take 7 months. During that time, the team continued refining the Earthside wormhole generator, pushing the stable aperture size to 30 centimeters, large enough for significant objects to pass through the Tanaka drive. Meanwhile, revolutionized orbital operations at SpaceX began using it for satellite deployments, reducing launch costs by 80%. Plans were underway for the first human test, a direct jump from Earth to the International Space Station, bypassing the traditional rocket launch entirely. Haruki maintained an advisory role on both projects, but spent most of his time on what he called his personal research. He converted part of his garage into a specialized laboratory, working late into the night on equations and designs he shared with no one, not even Kira. "What are you working on, Grandpa?" she asked one evening, bringing him dinner as he hunched over his calculations. "Just an idea," he replied evasively. "Something I need to explore, though." Concerned by his secrecy, Kira respected his privacy. She had her own responsibilities now. Having officially taken over leadership of the Wormhole project at 23, she had become one of the youngest senior directors at SpaceX, earning the respect of engineers twice her age through her brilliant insights and calm leadership. 7 months after launch, Perseverance the rover touched down safely on Mars. The rover's primary mission was to collect soil samples and conduct atmospheric tests, but its most groundbreaking component, the wormhole receiver, remained powered down, waiting for the Earth team to establish the connection. The day of the first test arrived. In an especially constructed facility at the SpaceX headquarters, the Earthside generator hummed to life. NASA, SpaceX executives, and government officials gathered to witness the historic moment. Haruki and Kira stood together at the control station, their hands poised over the activation sequence. "Ready?" Kira asked her grandfather. Haruki nodded, thinking of May. She should be here for this. "She is," Kira said softly, squeezing his hand. Together, they initiated the sequence. Power flowed into the generator, creating the quantum field distortion that would reach across millions of kilometers of space to connect with the receiver on Mars. "Field forming," Dr. Chen reported. Quantum signature stable on the monitors, they could see the wormhole aperture beginning to form, a shimmering circle of distorted space hovering within the generator's containment ring. Establishing connection with Mars receiver. "Telemetry active," Raj announced. There was a moment of breathless tension as the system attempted to lock on to the distant receiver. Then suddenly, the aperture stabilized, forming a perfect circle, 30 centimeters in diameter. "Connection established," Dr. Chen exclaimed. "We have a stable wormhole to Mars." The room erupted in cheers and applause. On the main screen, data began streaming from the Mars receiver, confirming the connection was stable on both ends. Haruki and Kira embraced, tears streaming down both their faces. They had done it, created the first stable wormhole between Earth and another planet. The distance between worlds, once measured in months of dangerous travel, had been reduced to a single step. The initial tests were modest. Data transmission, then small material samples passed through the wormhole in both directions. Martian soil arrived on Earth without ever boarding a return spacecraft. Earth seeds were planted in Martian greenhouses minutes after leaving terrestrial laboratories. 2 months after the successful wormhole link, Haruki invited Elon to his home laboratory. It was time to reveal his personal project. "I believe I've solved the final equation," Haruki said without preamble as Elon entered. "The temporal aspect of wormhole physics?" Elon's expression grew serious. "You mean?" "Yes. Controlled, limited-time displacement through a modified wormhole aperture." Haruki gestured to a small device on his workbench. "This is the prototype temporal field generator." "Have you tested it?" Elon asked, examining the device with cautious fascination. "In limited ways. I've sent quantum particles forward and backward in time by microseconds." Haruki's eyes shone with the excitement of discovery. "The particles arrive intact with their quantum signatures preserved." "The implications are enormous," Elon said, "and dangerous." "Which is why I'm sharing this with you alone," Haruki replied. "The world isn't ready for this technology. Perhaps it never will be." "Then why develop it at all?" Haruki was silent for a moment. "Because understanding is its own reward. Because knowledge shouldn't be feared, only respected." He paused. "And because I made a promise to May." Understanding dawned in Elon's eyes. "You want to send her a message across time?" "Just a simple communication," Haruki confirmed, "to let her know we succeeded, that her faith in me was justified." "Is that possible without changing the past?" "Theoretically, yes. A quantum encrypted message, targeted to a specific moment before her death. She would receive it as a dream, a feeling. Nothing that would alter events, but enough for her to know." Elon considered this carefully. "What do you need from me?" "Your understanding and your promise that this technology will remain secured until humanity is ready for it. If ever." "You have both," Elon said solemnly. 1 week later, on the anniversary of May's death, Haruki activated his temporal field generator in the privacy of his home laboratory. He created a microscopic wormhole with specific temporal coordinates, the night before May's passing when she had slept peacefully beside him. Through this quantum bridge, he sent a simple message encoded in waves that would register only in her dreaming mind. "We reached the stars, my love, just as you believed we would." Whether the message truly reached her, Haruki would never know with certainty. But that night, he slept more peacefully than he had in a year, feeling somehow that a circle had been completed. 3 years later, the first human traveled through the Mars wormhole, a NASA astronaut stepping directly from Earth to the red planet in a single moment. The era of interplanetary travel had truly begun. 5 years after that, using principles derived from both the Tanaka Drive and wormhole technology, SpaceX launched the first interstellar probe toward Alpha Centauri. Instead of the thousands of years such a journey would normally require, the probe would arrive in less than a decade, sending data back through a series of relay wormholes. On the day of the launch, Haruki stood with Kira at the SpaceX facility, now 80 years old, but still sharp-minded. They watched together as humanity's first messenger to another star system departed Earth. "Did you ever imagine this when you were driving that Uber?" Kira asked with a smile. Haruki chuckled. "I imagined it long before that. Your grandmother and I used to look at the stars and wonder what it would take to reach them." He squeezed her hand. "Now we know." As they turned to leave, a young reporter approached them. "Dr. Tanaka, what do you consider your greatest achievement?" Haruki thought for a moment. Most would expect him to name the drive that bore his name or the wormhole technology that had transformed space travel, but his answer was different. "Teaching my granddaughter to believe in possibilities," he said, smiling at Kira. Everything else followed from that. Later that evening, Haruki visited May's grave, placing fresh peonies beside the headstone. He sat on the small bench nearby, looking up at the stars beginning to appear in the twilight sky. "We did it, May," he said softly. "We're reaching for the stars just as we dreamed." He paused, a smile crossing his weathered face. "And someday we'll go there together." High above, Alpha Centauri twinkled in the gathering darkness, no longer an impossible destination, but the next frontier. And somewhere beyond, countless other stars waited, their mysteries ready to be unlocked by the technology that had begun with an old man's equations in an Uber driver's notepad. What had started as a chance encounter, a billionaire noticing a retired engineer's calculations, had blossomed into humanity's greatest adventure. A reminder that brilliance can be found in the most unlikely places, and that the future belongs to those who refuse to let their dreams die. All it takes is one moment of recognition, one chance meeting, one person believing in another, and the stars themselves come within reach. Thanks for joining me for the Starman's Second Chance. I'm curious, where in the world are you listening from? Drop your location in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story about second chances and reaching for the stars, please hit that like button to help spread a little kindness and inspiration to others who might need it. And if you're hungry for more stories like this one, check out the video appearing on your screen right now. Until next time, keep looking up at those stars. You never know what possibilities are waiting to be discovered.